If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's there and there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Peg, could I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Parmalee,
Present.
Councilman McCormick,
Present.
Councilwoman Ure,
Present.
Councilman Grandy, Council Vice President Collins, and Council President Groves.
Present. Moving on to 4, proclamations, presentations, and acknowledgements, review, discussion, and or potential action and or vote. Tonight, we're going to have a much anticipated presentation from TMDA HR Solutions and the Human Resource Committee concerning proposed updates to the Scituate Human Resource Manual and a proposed plan for soliciting feedback and input from town staff, benefits coordinators, and the town solicitors. I would like to turn the meeting over now, if we could look at the screen, to Dr. Sakina Lawal. Hi, Sakina.
Good
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, President Groves, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Lawal. It's an honor to be here among the town of Scituate, Rhode Island council members and townspeople. Truly hope everyone is staying safe, you and your loved ones, with the hurricane and tornadoes here. So hopefully everyone's doing well. We have tonight a presentation to share with you. If you bear with me shortly, I'll be happy to share my screen on some of the updates of the work that we've been doing so far for the town of Scituate. Is everybody able to see my screen now?
Yes, we are able to see it.
Thank you. And thank you for your time and your patience. I promise this is going to be pretty informative, and we'll be looking for your feedback at the end of this presentation. This is from TMDA, Tranquil Multi-Dynamic Advisory. We are a professional consulting services agency, and you'll get to learn a little bit about the introduction on the contract we're supporting for the town, and the requirements, the content of that contract. You'll get a chance to see our accomplishments so far and some of the updates we have specifically concerning human resources and the manual. We will also be asking for your input and feedback, please, at the end of this call and later on this week or next. And we'll talk about next steps and the approval request. And of course, we would thank you and see if you have any questions for us. So who is TMDA? We were founded in 2009. Recently, we celebrated our 15th year anniversary in March of this year. We're a renowned HR consulting firm located here in Northern Virginia. We have 2 offices in Reston and Tysons Corner, Virginia. But even though we're located in Northern Virginia, we have quite a vast client portfolio. So most of our clients are government clients, as you can imagine, being 45 minutes from DC. We have the U.S. Army, the DoD, but we also have academic clients like Virginia Tech or the Arlington Public School Systems, if you're familiar with that in Virginia. And we have clients such as yourselves that are townships, municipalities, for example, the state of Maryland, the state of Missouri, and some other clients as well. So what we do is we provide ongoing HR support. This won't be the last time you see us. We've been supporting the town for a year now, and here to kind of show you what we've been up to. This is the overall contract that we were awarded last year in 2023. We've looked at all four areas in the last year, successfully made recommendations, updates, input, and now we're turning it over to the town for your approval, hopefully. But the second item here is the part that we would like to call your attention to, which is the current Town of Scituate employee HR manual and your recommendations on all of the updates that we've made so far. Of course, we've looked at other things, best practices assessment. We've recommended changes on the job descriptions to make them up to date and created new ones actually where we couldn't find any. And we've also made some recommendations to your employee evaluation process. But again, the second tab here is really where we're going to focus your time on today. And please follow through and let us know if you have any questions at the end of the presentation. This is a little overview of the work that we've done so far. It was hard to pick a highlight of 5 items that we wanted to share tonight. As you can imagine, in 12 months, we've done a lot. However, we wanted to make really good use of the time that you've allotted for us tonight carefully. And so we've decided to highlight at least 5 items that we've monitored, changed, updated. The vaccination policy guideline and exemption process is the first one. We didn't update this. In fact, it was just non-existent. There wasn't one at all to start with. So it was a really good starting point for us to really make sure that there's some guideline on what can employees do if they need vaccination policy guidelines or they need an exception. So this is one area that we definitely will be looking for your input and feedback and approval on. We also looked at comp time. We realized the town didn't have a comp time policy and how to track that, especially for hourly employees versus salaried employees. How does that change? Who approves what? If I'm a department head, then who approves my comp time? Things like that. And now we've been able to put a policy together to help guide the team. Of course, all of these things can be amended, they can be changed, they can be updated and made even better. But we've at least created a starting point, right, for the town to have something in place. The third one was a controlled substance policy from about 3 decades ago. A lot has changed in 28 years, and so we really took it upon ourselves to update this policy. We found that most of the organizations that were listed are no longer in existence due to different reasons, or the phone numbers have changed, or the policies have been outdated. So this is one that we're actually actively working on, making sure it's such a large document. So we're making sure we get all of this in line. The Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act of 2024 has also been included in the HR manual. We want to make sure that should the town encounter any workers that need this accommodation, they would know what to do. And someone can go and say, we know what to do. We have a guidance here and we're covered, and make sure everybody is okay. And finally, we are also seeking your approval and review and suggestions to the employee training and onboarding with Treliant. Really good tool as a first impression. Now I've joined the town of Scituate in Rhode Island. What's next? Okay, great. We're going to onboard you, give you the trainings that you need. Or I've been with the town for 25 years. What's next for me? What's next? What do I do? Yes, we have OSHA trainings. We have sexual harassment trainings. We have remote work conduct trainings. We have road safety trainings if you're with the Department of Highway, for example. So lots of different trainings to kind of keep everybody updated. But these were the 5 we would like to highlight. We're at a 200-page document almost, so we did not want to bore you with that, but please take these 5 highlights tonight for your input and recommendations. So yeah, that's what we've been up to on the updates and timeline slide. Just we've been researching best practices. We have been vetting any vendor that the town is potentially wanting to use to make sure that we can provide our recommendations to the team. We've been pushing things forward to make sure the projects are moving on. We provide weekly updates and also monthly project meetings with the finance director and also with President Groves as her time permits. So, Dr. Lawal, why are we here? I am so glad you thought to ask. Very good. We're here to request your input, feedback, and approval, hopefully. We're going to use this form, if the town would indulge us, please, in this, to gather your feedback. We've created a form just for your organization. And when you receive this form, the link will look just like this, very similar. Whereas you'll be able to it's an anonymous form. I must start with that. So we want everyone to feel comfortable, unless you're saying, I want you to know it's me, so that you can reach back out to me for additional input. Please, of course, feel free to identify yourself, but please know this form is going to be anonymous to start. We're not asking for first, last names, anything like that. We just say, hey, today is the 8th of August. I am going to identify myself as a council member, or you can put your name here and then we'll know who you are. And if you're thinking, well, what is this lady talking about? I have not seen any of these things. I don't know what they are. Can you provide me a copy of the vaccination policy, a copy of your comp time that you've created for us? I want to see the controlled substance policy that we had. What is the Pregnancy Workers Act? I don't know what that is. I want to know about this training that you're talking about, right? If you click all of these, we'll make sure that copies get back to you. So please do identify yourself here with your name or an email address so we can actually get you those copies. And if you're saying, I would just like to provide feedback and input on all of the above, you can add comments here, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. These are my thoughts and recommendations. And please note that this page expands. You can write as little as possible. If you say, just send me a copy, I'd love to see, or I've had a chance to look at one or two of these are my recommendations, or I've heard that other companies are doing A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. Can you add that for the town as well? Here, this expands. As much as you write, it gives you more and more opportunity to add, or you can just write a little bit. And if you're thinking, I'm not sure how I'm feeling on a scale of 1 to 5. How do I feel that do I currently even understand what our policies are? You can be a neutral. You can say, nope, I don't know what's going on, or yes, I have a good grasp of what's going on. And yes, please do contact me for more details. If so, please make sure you write your information here and click submit. Guess who that goes to? That goes to us here at TMDA. Not President Groves, not Miss Karen. It goes to us, and we have a chance to kind of take a look and input all of your recommendations into the work that we're doing. And let us know if you want us to identify you as the person that shared those recommendations or not. So that was the main reason why we put this together, is to receive your approval to finalize the Human Resources Manual with all the proposed changes. We want to make sure we incorporate your feedback into these projects that we're working on, and we'll continue HR consulting support with weekly updates and monthly meetings with the town council members and with President Groves and the finance director as well. That's all from my end for now. I'll stop sharing to see if there are any questions, concerns, any initial input or approval from your end. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sakina. Does anyone from the council have any questions for her while she's here? Okay, I do have someone from the audience, the public. Sakina at the stand, if you could take his question.
In Ridge Road. You said you are talking to President Groves and the finance director concerning the changes in the human resource. You're not talking to the committee itself, human resource committee?
Yes, sir. We did that as well. We have had 2 HR committee meetings in the last year. The monthly meetings are mostly with President Groves and the finance director.
When were those meetings?
We had them in May of 2024. We can also provide the exact dates with the agenda details that were discussed.
You don't have the dates?
It should be May. We had one in May, on May 7th and another on May 29th.
Is there any timeline you're gonna get this work done?
Yes, sir. We were awarded this contract in 2023, and in the last 12 months, we've gotten most of the work done, and now just looking for input and feedback to hopefully implement this by the end of the year.
You list many organizations that you work with on human resources.
Yes, sir.
Is it just cut and paste, or is there something specific with Scituate that are you working with?
Yes, sir. Very good question. There is no one size fits all when it comes to human resources. We're able to tailor all of our findings, all of the research, all of the work that we're doing to be specific to the town of Scituate and Rhode Island. Because we also have other township and municipalities that we support, we're able to even bring some benchmarking ideas. If there's something the town has not thought about that we feel might be advantageous, we can share those resources freely because they're public knowledge correctly with the town. So in a way, to answer your question, it could be both. Some items are tailor-made just for the town's needs, very specific to that size, to the number of people, to the population, to the people that you serve. And in some cases, it's just general employment law, right? It's the law that serves the whole state, or that is federal in nature, and that we all have to implement, whoever is in all the 50 states. So it could be a little bit of both, sir.
Have you talked to any other department heads in the town?
If any of the department heads, sir, are part of the HR committee, then I've most likely met them in our meetings. If none of the department heads are part of the HR committee, then I haven't had a chance to meet them yet.
Don't you think that'd be a good idea to talk to department heads concerning HR?
Yes, sir. We have discussed the possibility, this is a good question, of human resources and the connection with each department head. For example, the highway department head, the police officer, the police department, and other departments as well. The town hasn't really provided guidance on if this is necessary or if it's possible, but we'd be very happy to do so if the opportunity presents itself.
Well, you're the expert on human resources. Don't you think it would be a good idea to talk to the department heads? Not only the town council president and the finance.
Excuse me
director,
for 1 second. Like I said to you before about this process with the HR committee, we started the committee, I think it was 2 years ago now. There were some people that left the committee. We're trying to get a full committee going. This and talking with this consultant, Sakina, which has been very helpful to get that foundation started. These are just the recommendations from meeting with her and the HR committee, what's left of it. There's going to be that second process where we're going to be reaching out to department heads, obviously, and having a committee put together to officially bring it to the council level. The HR, the Human Resources Handbook.
But it seems like we're spending money, but we don't even have a committee in place. We haven't even talked to the department heads. I think that's the first place you'd start is talking with the department heads. But first of all, have a committee. That's what's on the agenda.
It's been publicized. If anyone would like to be on it, it's been publicized.
What's on the agenda that this is consultation with the HR committee. But now I'm learning we don't have a committee.
We have a 2-person committee. Actually, 3. I'm the third.
And who else is on the committee?
Gary, you were on the committee. Actually, it's 4. So it is Brian Groskuth and Sal Lombardi and Gary and myself.
And no department heads.
No.
It wouldn't be a good idea to put department heads on an HR committee.
Because at some point they will be involved, yes.
I think we're paying resources and we don't even have a committee in place. I think the first thing we do before we spend any more money
We do have a committee in place.
Do you meet regularly?
We have met. We're not regularly, no.
When's the last time the committee met?
May.
Sufficient this is very important that we're spending thousands of dollars. And we're going to hear tonight that we don't have the money. And we're spending thousands of dollars. And we don't
This is from the APRA funding,
have
ARPA funding, and also
taxpayers' money.
I completely understand. This was work that needs to be done. It's imperative to be done, to be honest with you, and it's something that we were lacking. So I have to thank Sakina because we've had trials and tribulations with this committee, but this is something that I'd like to see all the way through, and it has to happen, to be quite honest with you.
I think we had a committee earlier, but the people quit because the town council didn't want to let them go forward.
That's not
with what they
true.
wanted to do.
That's not true.
Well, that's what they were saying at the time.
Who?
Alicia Kelly.
That's not true.
That's not true.
I'm not going to do a he said, she said of what it's her opinion. It's not ours or yours. However, this to me was imperative work that had to be done. Sakina has helped us create and build a foundation of things that we were missing in town. And it's going to help us moving forward.
Okay, so when are we going to get this work done? It's been years now in the making.
This is the first presentation of the work we've been doing. Moving forward, now we're going to work on creating this handbook where the department heads would come in, and obviously we need their input. That was never off the table. So we can have a handbook that works for the employees. And it's something that's transparent and something that you can refer to and not have to go digging in different directions. It's all in one place. When you enter and you become a new employee in Scituate, there's a process that happens, not just welcome aboard.
May
There's a
I?
job description that when someone leaves, we can say, oh, Peg, can you pull the job description for whichever position it is and be able to post that without an issue, without having to reinvent the wheel.
Excuse me, may I say something?
Mhm.
I would love to be on that committee. And I'm technically not a department head. I'm an elected official, just like you and Gary. And I really think I could bring a lot of insight into what is heard around town hall.
I think you'll
And-
definitely be invited to one of the meetings. You do
Well, no,
have a
I want to be
department.
I want to be part of the committee.
Okay.
Since there are other elected officials, I can't see why I couldn't be appointed also.
Karen's not an official member of the committee, but yes, that's fine. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
We have advertised for members of the Human Resources Committee repeatedly and have not received any responses from anybody, positive responses. So if Peggy wants to be on the committee, she needs to let us know that.
I just did.
Yeah, but we put it out there a number of times and didn't receive any requests from you or anybody else.
Well, that's because I didn't realize it was open to,
Again, just to be clear, Karen handles HR at this current time. Therefore, that's why she was brought in for her insight in working with Sakina.
So maybe she's wearing too many hats and we need somebody else involved. And I think this council ought to understand that one person can't do every job.
Do you have any other questions for Sakina while she's here?
I do.
Oh,
When
good.
is this work going to be done?
Sakina, you still with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, we're still working on everything. The department heads have been involved at the job description level, which I was happy to see that. We've shared all of their job descriptions for each of their departments. We've asked them to look at the changes we've made. We've asked them to also add their input, which they have, and we've made those changes. So that section, at least, it's kind of one section out of four, right? As you saw earlier, on the HR manual side, we'll do the same with them as well. We'll send this link out that you saw tonight. We'll gather your input. You can write as much as you'd like or as little as possible. However you wish. You can be anonymous. You can say, hey, here's my first, last name. Here's my email. I want to know more. I want to see these policies. We'll be happy to share. But yeah, we don't have a specific end date in our contract. Our contract started in 2023, and it's it's ongoing support that we're providing the town. So that will be left to the town to really let us know what their thoughts are on that once we complete all of our work that's assigned in the contract, sir.
My question again is, when is it going to be done? You have a contract, you know what your contract says. When can you get that work done that's in your contract?
I think now a lot of it's going to be up to us to come together with the department head, review what she has suggested with this committee, the redlined items, and to see what the department heads think, what's missing, what's lacking, so on and so forth.
How important is this to the town council?
I think it's important. I think it's the foundation of the employees that work not under a contract.
Well, then I think we need to have meetings
Regularly, I agree.
regularly. We're not doing that. May, what I'm hearing is was the last meeting.
Well, we did, right. May was the last meeting. It was supposed to be presented in June. It didn't work out. This presentation was supposed to happen in July. Didn't work out. So I'm glad finally we got this presentation in August. Now we continue moving forward.
Here's my issue. Resources are limited here in Scituate. If we're gonna spend resources, let's get something for it.
Agreed. I think we've done a lot of great work. I don't know if you read through all of it, but it's something that needed to be done and it has been started. It is a priority.
I am not complaining about the work that's been done. I'm complaining about the work that hasn't been done. And I'm asking the committee to work weekly, meet weekly. You're on the committee, work weekly to get this done. Those resources could be used for other purposes in this town. We're here tonight on the agenda. People are asking for money. Many people, many organizations. And I think the sooner we get this done, the more money we can save and we can use it for other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sakina? Did you have a question, Terry? Go ahead.
I actually have a question. Why are the secretarial staff in the police department being treated differently than the rest of the non-union employees? They're getting an hour off for lunch paid, and the rest of the town hall and public works, non-union people, get a half an hour and it's docked from our pay.
Is that what
It's-
was in the red line that Sakina had said? Or is that from the old one that we need to
it's from the-
negotiate? Yeah, that would
not
come up.
negotiate. I mean, but it shouldn't even be
Not
in
negotiate.
there.
Negotiate wasn't the right word.
Yeah,
Update, I guess we should
Update,
say.
yes, that thing really needs to be updated because it's just not fair that the workers at the DPW that are non-union and the workers at town hall that are non-union get a half an hour that they pay for. And then,
Well, these are the things that you could bring to the
Right,
committee.
yeah.
Right.
and then the police department gets an hour paid a day.
That's contractual though, isn't it?
No, no. This is
Oh,
the
the
separate
non-union, okay.
non-union people.
Well, those are
Yes.
things that need
Yeah.
to come up at the next
Yeah.
meeting. So
And that's why I think it's important to have a meeting with the department heads because
Yes.
sometimes we see things that you guys can't know everything.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. I was misunderstood. I thought she was talking about the contracted employees. She was talking about the non-contracted employees. Mhm.
Police department, non-union personnel do not get the hour for lunch. They work 8 hours. In the HR proposal, there is red line language to give them the hour off.
Oh, so that's not even approved. That's not
It's not-
approved yet.
It's not happening.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Can I please ask the consultant why she changed that? Sakina?
Ma'am,
The-
any changes or red lines that you've seen did not originate just from TMDA. These are things that were either proposed during the HR committee meeting. These are things that were either proposed during the HR committee meeting, proposed by a member of the town that we've met with, and then that we've put into consideration and either did a yea or nay on this might be good for the town or not. So we don't know as consultants, what's going on totally, right? We have ideas from other townships. We want to hear the stories that the town council members are telling, or the community members are telling us, or the department heads are going to tell us. And then we're going to make some recommendations. I mentioned earlier in my proposal, in my presentation, these are recommendations. They're not final. They're not approved, right? They're just recommendations. And usually, again, they don't all come from us. The things that come from TMDA are usually rooted in facts. For example, employment law, state law, new acts. And yes, so those are things that are, whether we like it or not, fortunately or unfortunately, they must be included in a handbook just to cover the town, right? In case there's a lawsuit, in case there's any adverse actions, we can say, look, we have a policy that supports this. We've put it in place. This is the guidance that it says we can take XYZ, and this is how it's going to be. But if you're seeing other things that are very specific to union versus non-union, please know those are not coming from TMDA. They're usually conversations we've had, recommendations we've been provided, input and suggestions, for example, with the link we're going to share today that we've kind of put together to present back to the town to say, does this look accurate? And if it's inaccurate, then we can still work on it on our end.
I think that's
Thank
going to
you
be a
very
big help,
much.
actually, and I hope everyone takes advantage of filling that out.
So I just have a question. Is that where did the vaccination policy come from?
There was one, ma'am, pre-existing in the HR manual and handbook, which was only relative to the flu vaccination. Upon taking on this program in 2023, we were still hearing of COVID and other relative issues that are going on with the end of the pandemic there. So we included more for that flu vaccination section that was already pre-existing in the town's HR manual to kind of include just a variety more of things that people might need exemptions for, right? Someone might say, I have a religious exemption, or hey, my position actually requires that I take this vaccination and that people around me have this vaccination. And how can the town go about that, depending on each case by case, and forms to support that and documentation to support that, so that everybody's covered. So again, to answer your question, the flu vaccination was already a pre-existing section, which is great. That was good, but it needed to be expanded to include more of things that were happening recently as well.
The existing flu vaccination. So I'll do some more research, but thank you for that answer. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Sakina, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate all the hard work you've been doing and working with us, and I look forward to meeting with you again.
Yes, ma'am. And we look forward to meeting with you to expanding this to everyone who wants to provide input to the department heads. We want to hear everyone's voices and make sure we incorporate their thoughts and ideas and recommendations. This is a great investment for the town. It's not something that's going to hurt the town. It's something that's going to help. If we're looking at policies from 1996, you can imagine a lot has changed. And if something were to happen and someone says, I want to call a controlled substance program, and they dialed the number that we dialed, that we found in your policies that no longer work, it could put someone in such a dire need for help. Just one example. So these are things that are good to have in place. Just make sure the town is covered from any adverse effects, any issues, any lawsuits. That's why we're here, is to help you. But if you have questions, we can share the presentation from tonight and the link, and they'll get disseminated, and we'll be happy to help. I hope everyone stays safe and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Okay, moving on to 5, public hearings, review, discussion, and a potential action and or vote. Just a reminder, there's no virtual participation, no public virtual participation on these public hearing items. All in favor? Land Trust, you want to open your meeting?
I believe Rob asked me to do a roll call of the land trust.
Yes, thank you. I'll formally call the land trust meeting to order and ask Peg to do the roll call.
Okay. Lauren Avery. Rob Bauer. Anna Samini. William Frederickson. Cindy Gianfrancisco. Chris Mason. Matthew Sayer. And that's it.
Yeah, you want me to go ahead?
Yep, we've already opened our public hearing. Do you want to open your public hearing?
Thank you. I'll just say a few words. All the information has been published.
Oh, hold on one second, Rob. Does your committee have to enter into a public hearing or you don't typically have to
not
do
I
that?
know of, David. I think we're okay. So I will move that we move into public hearing for the land trust. Is there a second? Cindy seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. So we are now in public hearing.
All right,
Thank
perfect.
you.
So the first item in the public hearing tonight is a joint public hearing with the Scituate Land Trust, who seeks to purchase 2 parcels in the Village of Hope to be held in public trust pursuant to Town of Scituate Ordinances 10-51 and 10-54 and RIGL 45-36.1-1. The Land Trust is requesting up to $100,000 from the town's open space fund towards these purchases in the anticipation that the cost will be offset by grants. The first item is lot 117 on Scituate Tax Assessors Plot 10, consisting of 0.77 acres, currently owned by Arthur Langlis with a purchase price of $119,900. Do you want to talk about that one first, or do you want to do them together?
Separate.
Okay.
So there are 2 reasons we decided to move on this when we saw that it was for sale. One, this property is right at the end of Riley Lane there in the Village of Hope, which is the next street up from the library and goes straight down toward the trails and the Hope Associates land that's protected there near Doctor's Field. And there's the only access to those trails is right now is through Doctor's Lane. This would provide easy walkable access from the main part of the village. So that appealed to us very much. The big reason was that it looked like the developers were interested in that lot. And as we explored the possibilities of that, we realized that the frontage on the Riley Lane end was not sufficient for them to develop from that end. So they would have to have the frontage be on the other side, which immediately abuts the protected land there. There is a right of way that goes along with the sale of the property from Doctor's Lane. And if there were a house built in there, that would have meant improving that right of way in from Doctor's Lane and really would be detrimental to the protected land down there and the trails along the river. We're also very concerned about adding houses with septics near the river. As you know, a lot of discussion about how we clean that up and be concerned about that. So those are the real reasons. As far as the purchase price, we did offer the asking price. We're asking for money from the Open Space Fund. That's a reserve fund that we have contributed to over the years. I think the Land Trust has probably put in 50,000 or more over the years to that reserve fund because we don't often have an opportunity to purchase properties, and we always budget for it because when it comes up, you need to move quickly and you need to jump through the hoops to get it done. So we have also been able to raise $33,000 toward the purchase of the property. I'd really like to publicly thank the Nature Conservancy, who's committed $20,000. Fields Pond Foundation has committed $10,000, and the Rhode Island Land Trust Council has contributed $3,000. There's potential for some more, but as of now, that means we would be requesting $86,900 from the Open Space Fund. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council or anyone else.
Rob, I have a quick question. So as we get funds in, will you replenish?
Yes, and
And you're able to do that, right?
right, because that Open Space Fund is an active fund, and we can switch out and take care of that. So,
So are you asking for 100,000 or up to $86,000?
not more than 90,000.
Okay.
We've been able to handle the due diligence costs. So that would be toward the purchase price.
I'll kick it off by saying if this is appropriate, I'll make a motion that we approve up to $90,000 out of the open space fund be used for this purchase.
Motion's been made and seconded. Public comment? Ted, I know you're virtual. Could you answer that question, please?
I'm sorry, could you restate the question, please?
How much is in the fund?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number in front of me, but I know there's a sufficient, Richard, there is a sufficient amount of money to handle this transaction.
That wasn't the question. You're the treasurer. This was on the agenda.
I will get that.
You should
information
really
to you.
know what's in that fund. This was last year's number, 119 was in the fund last year.
No, it's purchase.
So
What's in the
119,
fund this year?
119 is the price of the
That's the
property.
purchase
No,
price.
that's what was in the fund.
Oh,
I looked it up. Unless someone has a different number than I have. I looked it up this week.
Richard, as far as I know, there's been no money spent out of that fund since that figure was given.
Just the 119. But we're not having any money coming in from building properties, building houses. I believe that's where the money comes from.
If I'm not mistaken, that comes into the land dedication fund, which is a separate fund.
But this is also the recreation fund, correct?
I believe the recreation money is coming out of the land dedication fund. For example, the 80,000 or so for the fence around Brooklander Field, I believe came out of that fund you were talking about, which comes in from tax money.
So these are two different funds?
That's my understanding.
Ted, is that correct?
That is correct.
What's in the recreation fund? Ted?
Once again, Richard, I don't have these specific numbers in front of me. I will get them to you tomorrow.
As usual. Ted, please.
There is
I've been
adequate
through this
funds.
rodeo before. That you don't
Richard,
get it back
there
to
is
me,
adequate
please.
funds for this transaction.
Richard, I was, last I knew there was about 20,000 left in that fund.
Thank you. Thank you for being informed. I would like you in 2 years to run for treasurer because we need somebody who knows the finances of this town. Thank you.
No chance.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have any other comments?
So procedurally, there's two different sets of votes. One, the land trust needs to make a vote, majority vote of the trustees to acquire the land. There needs to be a separate vote from the town council, similar to what's been made, to authorize the funds, but there also needs to be another motion, perhaps making the purchase contingent on putting the land into what's known as public trust land. And that's pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4536.1-2. And that's a condition of the purchase and sales agreement for this particular property.
Okay, so
So
I'll amend,
probably amend your motion.
I'll amend my motion to state.
Do you have to, do you have to wait until the land trust does theirs first?
No.
Okay,
I'll second the amended motion as stated.
I like it.
any other public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Now the land. Make their motion.
Yes, so I will move that the land trust approve the purchase of the property. And is it a separate motion for the protection
You could do it together.
and protect it under the public trust legislation? Is there a second? Cindy seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Arthur Langless and his family who've been very supportive through this process. They were really instrumental in wanting to protect that land, and that was, of course, our intention as well. And we were able to do this under some recent legislation that made it quick and easy to do rather than going through a lengthy conservation easement process. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. He is here this evening. Thank you. Dave, do we have to do another motion, you said? Or he did it all?
You covered it by amending the motion.
Okay, thank you.
So then the next
So
item.
moving on to A2, lot 272 on Scituate Tax Assessors Plot 9-1 and lot 14 on Cranston Tax Assessors Plot 31, the lot and farm property currently owned by the town of Scituate with a purchase price of $1. Excuse me. The intention of the land trust is to expand the conservation easement currently held by the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management that encumbers the adjacent property of Lot 9 on Scituate Tax Assessors Plot 9-1. Go ahead.
So this has been in the works for a long time. Two different councils approved this some time ago, over a year ago, I think, from this council. And we were able to do an updated survey, which was needed partly because there's a sliver of that land that's in Cranston. So this will really clarify the property and be filed both in Cranston and Scituate. So we were also able to do a right-of-way easement for a new trail we're putting in, and that's all incorporated into this. So we're happy to be able to extend that conservation easement over the 15 acres, which will mean that grassland habitat can be preserved forever.
Richard Finnegan, Ridge Road.
Oh, I think do we need a motion first, David, before we have comments? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Grandy? Wouldn't that land be good for soccer fields?
I defer that to the land trust. Tasca's doing a fine job the way what we have right now and Manning. So I don't know that we need to turn that into a soccer field.
Soccer Association will be looking for other fields in town.
Not right now,
for our
because
children.
I think we handle what we have currently fine at Tasca. And the high school was playing at Manning. They no longer have to because Cato's open. So we've been able to accommodate the children and the teams we have currently right now. And unfortunately, our school population seems to be dropping. So ultimately, our people joining soccer teams has dropped also. Although we'll have a better idea of that probably in another week or two.
So is this the best use for this land?
Yeah, Richard, as you know, several years ago, there was a lot of discussion about how to utilize that land. I think the consensus then was to keep it as part of the preserved land there. This is one of the few public grasslands in the state, publicly owned grasslands large enough to support the bird populations. And I think it was understood that if you take that 15 acres out and develop it, that you ruin that possibility of that grassland habitat. It just is not enough to support the bird population. So that was the reason.
The reason why I'm saying this, I think we need to do more for our children here in Scituate. I believe we need more fields, more recreation for our children. And so, I would agree with this, but in the future, let's look and see if we can get some more fields for our children, for tennis, basketball, baseball, especially.
So have you spoken to the Recreation Committee about that, Richard? Because I think that would be a good place to start, and then maybe they could make a recommendation to us for that.
I know.
Do they meet? That'd be a good place to start.
I know,
Okay?
just like these parents here, that's why they're here. Because they're asked to do something, they did it, let's see how well that goes. That's all I'm saying. Let's not push the ball down the road. But you're the town council, you're the only one who can do it. The recreation committee can't do it. No other committee can do it, only the town council.
We don't formulate programs like that. That's not our
This is
our job to formulate programs.
Private property. That's what you do, and you give property away. That's what you can see. I don't think with a really need that you can move this property. It's then conserved. Or the GS. That's the town council. I think we should stop looking and see what we can do for our children. It all comes down to the almighty dollar. And again, I'm gonna keep pushing this. Every single meeting, I'm gonna keep pushing this. We have a terrible agreement.
This has nothing to do with that right now. This is a public hearing based on this plot of land. Let's stick to the agenda and the public hearing. Let's stick to the agenda item that we're talking about.
I can't even benefit from it. Yeah. But maybe,
Thank you.
great idea.
Thank you.
I move approval of the subject property.
Second. Yes.
Ruth Strunk, 27 Thomas Angel Way.
Oh.
We do a lot for our children.
Gary.
In this town.
Gary.
A lot. We spend a lot of our money, taxpayers' money on the school. We spend a lot. The land trust has been excellent about working with the soccer association, the Tasca Field for years. Still is pristine Tasca soccer field. When I got on the land trust in the early 2000s, I asked Ken Weber if he would come to Lawton Farm to do a walk. And he said, there's nothing there. The dogs run wild. The animals are all gone. The birds are not being protected. And he didn't come. Over the years, when I was on the land trust and when people on this land trust and the new people on the land trust, they work hard all the time to protect what properties we have. We do not own as much property as people think we own. We do not own the Providence water property. It's not ours. We don't control that. We can't walk on that. We can't create bird habitat on that. Lawton Farm is a gem in this state, totally unique. And it needs to be as big as it is with a conservation easement so it can stay unique. You can't cut a soccer field out of there and have nesting birds and bobolinks. Someone at the library said, oh, those bobolinks. I pulled up in the parking lot and I saw them. They're all over the place. Now, if you don't care about birds, that's one thing. If you don't care about the conservation projects in the town. But the land trust has worked hard for a lot of years to be sure that we have conserved lands. And I think this is for the sake of $1. It is a wonderful investment that you're going to make. The best use of my taxpayers' money that you're going to make. Because we need an easement, because without an easement, you know what happened a few years ago. Without an easement, people can come in and say, well, look at the deed. The deed doesn't say anything. We can do anything we want there. We could turn it into a soccer field. We could turn it into a football field. We could turn it into a parking lot if we wanted to. You need this easement and you need to extend it to the whole piece. It's been missing for all these years. Please, we take care of the children. I know I have no children and I still pay to take care of the children in this town. and have for my whole life, of course, like everybody else does. We need this easement on that property. And I ask you to please vote in support of this Conservation Commission. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
And I'll move on behalf of the Land Trust that we approve item 4A2 to purchase the 15 acres at Lawton Farm. Is there a second?
It's
Cindy seconds.
just one, it's 5A2.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, I was looking on
Your agenda.
my agenda, sorry.
That's okay. It's
Same
5A2.
item, same
Yes.
item. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, I'll move that we adjourn the land trust portion of the. Oh,
I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you do for our town. I think it's spectacular, hard work.
thank you. And Tim reminded me we need to close the public hearing, so I'll move that we close the public hearing for the land trust. And Cindy seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And I will move that we adjourn the land trust portion of the public hearing. Second, Cindy. All those in favor say aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Moving on to 6, public comments for items not on the agenda. Seeing or hearing no public comments, moving on to 7. Appointments, review, discussion, and a potential action and or vote. There are none this evening. Moving on to 8, the consent items. Review, discussion, and a potential action and or vote.
Abby,
Yes.
I have to abstain from A1 and A2. I wasn't present.
Okay. You can just note it.
Let's first do items 8A, 1 and 2. You weren't here either? that what you said?
Actually, I can just put that they're abstaining
Okay.
from those. A3. Okay.
Okay, I think I need new batteries in this. It keeps shutting off.
I make a motion that we carve out the consent items A1, 2, and 3.
She can just abstain.
Okay.
Individual
Yeah.
people.
All right.
So Gary is 1 and 2 and Chuck is 3.
3.
Okay. There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Actually, if
Oh.
I could, I do have
Yes.
an item I want to talk about briefly, and that is we received, it's in the packet, a letter from Cindy Jan Francisco of the Conservation Commission for bacteria on down at Hope Pond. The pond's been shut down. The kids haven't been able to use it. And I want to know if this is going to get on, where we're going to talk about this. Maybe it's the next agenda, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, it's important that we address this. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Any discussion on the consent items?
Who
I
made
think
the
it was, I
motion?
believe it was Terry.
Terry, and who seconded it? For the consent items.
I did.
Chuck made it and I
Yeah.
seconded.
Okay.
That's how it worked.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the consent items? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 9. I'm going to turn it over to you, Chuck, for the resolution.
Financed by the $3,500,000
in bonds, capital, school capital projects, and approving the amendment for the Scituate Public Schools capital budget for FY 2025. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion on it?
Yes. I looked at this resolution. I unfortunately having a little glitch here with the Wi-Fi, but approximately this job was bid out by the school committee and it was won at $198,000. Evidently, the contractor didn't realize or didn't check that the school wasn't sufficiently equipped to handle the equipment he was putting in. So now he's looking for another $140,000. I have a problem with this. That's 70% of the original bid. I think the contractor should be responsible. I think his bond should be responsible. I don't think we should be responsible.
Superintendent's here. Somewhere. Lori? You want to have Mr. Anderson respond to this, or you want to respond to this? Okay.
Hi, Kyle Robinson from Scituate and Associates Architects. So that is not exactly the case. So the $150,000 is for a BDA system. So a BDA system is a system that amplifies police and fire radio signals. So the initial $190,000, 197, whatever that was for an upgrade of the fire alarm system. In their initial bid, they provided the cost to do the testing on if a BDA system was required. After we received their bids during the scope review, we realized they did not carry a price for that. We asked for a price. They gave us the $140,000 price for a BDA system if one was required. And we compared their initial bid of 197 plus 140 to the second bid we got, which was $505,000. And we recommended we move forward. The contract that was signed had the $140,000 in the contract as a unit price because the testing had not yet been completed. So upon the start of the contract, they did the BDA testing. The building failed. There were areas, essentially a fail is there are areas in the building that the radio signal, police and or fire radio signals are not strong enough. At that time, it was sent to the fire marshal who said if the signal fails, we want the system in place. So the additional system, which is unrelated to the original fire alarm system, was added into the contract. So the change order is taking the unit price that was provided during the bid process and activating it into the project.
Okay, I understand what you said, but it doesn't answer my question is that that radio signal was the crux. It was the cornerstone of the system working, because without it, you don't follow the mandates that are necessary. So I would have thought that your contractor in walking through this building would have determined that first, that they have a proper signal before they decide to do anything else, because without the signal, the system doesn't work. So why wasn't the signal determined first before the job was even contemplated and then bid and then agreed upon? And then the contract was signed. The contract should have been first.
So the only way to determine the signal is through the official test. Now, the school department could have done the test on their own ahead of time, which looking back now may have been a prudent choice. But until that test is done, there was no known issues within that building. So the fire marshal had identified work at the high school, that there were areas of the high school that were known to have signal issues. At North Scituate Elementary, there were no known issues that were identified.
Other than the fact that there just wasn't sufficient signal to run the system. which
No,
should have
so-
been tested.
So the BDA system and the fire alarm system are separate systems.
But we're asking for $140,000 to put the BDA system in, correct?
Correct.
Because the system that's in there, because the signal that's in there currently is insufficient to run the fire alarm system.
No. So the fire alarm system will operate with or without the BDA system.
Then why do we need the BDA system?
It is something that has been coming up over the last few years, a focus for police and fire, that their radio signals are not active or full strength in certain situations.
So if we had an issue at that school, they couldn't contact police or fire because the BDA system wasn't there or wasn't sufficient or didn't match their radio signals.
There have been identified areas where the police or fire signal are low.
I guess the crux is
during their communication.
the crux of what you said is that the schools committee, the school department should have tested first, and that was their option to do so, to make sure that the building was adequately equipped to handle this system.
That would have been the only way to know ahead of time would have been for the school department to do the test on their own ahead of time.
Okay, and at the expense of sounding snarky, and this is not directed at you, generally doctors don't operate unless they do like maybe an X-ray or a CAT scan. They find out what's wrong first before they cut into somebody. Maybe we should have found out first whether or not we should do this by doing that test.
So typically, also just from typically, I agree with you. I think, and that's something that should be looked at in all existing buildings moving forward before projects like this are begun. But typically that is not a test that is done ahead of time. This is a system that is becoming more and more prevalent in the last few years. And as that's kind of becoming a need throughout different communities and departments, I think moving forward, that would be a prudent choice is to, I do not know what those tests run, but to do those tests ahead of time would be a prudent approach.
So I have a question. So the fire marshal that you worked with, did you work with Chief Robinson or?
No, Penn, I'm going to say his name wrong, so. Yeah.
It's Carl
Yeah, it was
Patching.
Chief Carl Penn. Patching.
And Chief Robinson hasn't been involved in this at all. What about Chief Robinson? Has he been
He's not a
involved?
fire marshal.
No, I understand that, but as far as the signal is concerned, right? We're talking signals here and, you know, they obviously coordinate all of those
Yeah,
signals
so
together.
The system
Moare's not a fire
functions for
marshal,
both
thank you.
fire and police signals. This one was sparked by the upgrade of the fire alarm. It was raised that the testing was desired to be put into to find out if there was an issue at the school. The change in the number was so we added the project in the BDA system into the bid process as an addendum. The bid had already been out without it in the system, without it in the bid. One contractor included it, and one contractor only included the testing. During the scope review on the low bid, that's when we identified they hadn't included the full BDA, including the BDA system. So prior to awarding any contract, we received that separate price of 140 from the low bidder, and which was still added together with their bid for the fire alarm, still $170,000 lower than this only other bid that was received.
The contractor that bid the lowest, he didn't feel it's professionally incumbent upon him to at least suggest to the school committee that there was a possibility that the signal could be insufficient and that there should be a test done to determine this. So we wouldn't have to have an $140,000 addendum.
They included the cost for the test as part of their initial bid. So the $197,000 included the test to identify if there was an issue.
So then they did the test and found that there was an issue.
So prior to doing the test, they gave us the price of what it would be if it failed. And then one of the first things they did in the school, once school was out, was run the test.
So
In
they
fact,
know
I believe that they did the test prior to school being out.
they notified the school committee that this test was necessary to determine if the signal was sufficient to handle this new system.
So yes, but they're two separate systems that don't.
No, I'm
operate
aware of
together.
that, but
So
you needed the test done to
You need-
determine if,
correct.
right, okay.
You need the test done, and the test is not, every building is different in these tests. So-
Obviously.
So it's not a test that you can anticipate, even when we do new buildings. The building has to be fully constructed before the test can be done to determine whether the system's needed. And then that test is needed to appropriately place the system in so that the signals are strongest in the weak areas.
Have we started any of this work yet?
Yes,
So basically, we're kind of stuck.
and it's required. by the
And it's
fire
required.
marshal. It's required by the fire marshal. Yep.
Colleen Pendergast, 2 Apple Hill Drive. I'm a member of the school committee. So just for a point of clarification, and Kyle, I'm going to yield to you on this. By state or federal, the chiefs can probably tell better than I, we are obligated to have every school inspected by the fire marshal prior to the beginning of school. And that is done by, I know we were talking Robinson, it's done by the fire marshal of that district. So Kyle, you had alluded to when a fire marshal had done the up until this most recent implementation at the high school, I'm sorry, we're talking about North Scituate right now. We were never aware that there was an issue that had never been brought to us by the fire marshal before. It was brought to us at the high school level,
Yes.
which we had addressed. Obviously, we are not fire experts, but we yield to the ones that are. The state fire marshals, and we've done so at Hope and we've done so at every other school. When it was brought to our attention that there was an issue, it was immediately addressed. So now it was brought to our attention only after they were looking at putting in and we bid out the new fire alarm. So I don't want anyone here to think that we're not doing due diligence when it comes to the safety of the kids. But if their fire marshal is telling us we need to get something done, again, this wasn't said to us at any prior to the beginning of any other school year. So obviously we wouldn't address something that we don't know about. Once we were made aware of it, obviously this is why we're here. Right?
No, that's fine, but that's not the point. The point is that when this was put out to bid, you were notified that the test needed to be done to determine if the school had sufficient resources to handle the system.
So the system and Kyle can speak to this better than I am. The bid was put out for the fire alarm. And part of that, so it's separate. Great.
So the original bid was put out just for the fire alarm. So towards the end of that bid process, we added in the BDA system. Now in the addendum, it was the information for the BDA system was added, but there was not clear directive to add a BDA system for the building. That's why one contractor that submitted it provided the price for the BDA system, and one only provided price for the testing.
And my understanding is because the second contractor included it because he knew that without the BDA system to match up with the fire and police radio signals, then the alarm goes off and the police and the fire are not necessarily going to be notified.
No,
So-
they would be notified.
Then
So-
what do we need the new system for?
It's pure communication on site. Radio communication on site. So when the fire department shows up, their radio from essentially inside the building and outside the building is what we're talking about. They're
Can't they communicate with each other right now? But if they come to my home where I don't have this system, the firemen inside can't talk to the firemen outside?
So what the test proves is how strong that signal is. So it's similar to a cell phone signal. You think it works, but if you walk across the room, you may not have signal over there. So it's using the dedicated frequencies of their radios and testing throughout the building to find out if there are locations within the building where their signal is low or not through. Now, in most cases, there is a signal, but it may be below. They have identified a threshold or that the signal strength should be, and the test runs signal strengths throughout the building. And if they, they either come back strong enough or they come back below the threshold as a fail, and that's when the fire marshal said, we want the system in place.
So is this to boost the signal of the firefighters' radios within the building?
Yes.
So you're telling me that our firefighters' equipment may fail in a building that doesn't have this BDA system?
So as we kind of alluded to in the high school, there were known areas in the high school where the fire department had weak signals. Now, I don't know if those were fully, we have done a test over there as well. There were no zeros, so there was no loss of signal, but there were weak signals in areas of the high school. That was a known problem from, I don't know how they knew it through tests, just happenstance when they're walking around doing their reviews. But what these systems do is any building, there is a chance that those frequencies are not strong throughout the whole building.
So in this building, which doesn't have a BDA system, if a firefighter's on the outside and a firefighter's on the inside, is a possibility they can't talk to each other?
Yes. Now, this is a fairly open, simple building, so the chances on this building are pretty low. But in more complex buildings, in areas, especially older buildings made out of stone, concrete, there are chances that there are areas in buildings that they cannot communicate.
If I could ask a question, first off, this is required by the fire marshal.
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, while there's room for improvement in the process here, on this particular bid, the taxpayers are not out any money. This is a lower bid versus the other bid, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we got the price that has been given was put in as a unit price on the contract because the total was still $170,000
Right.
lower than the other bid.
Thank you.
I think my concern is the process that went through. Is that this should have been done, this test should have been done in advance, and they should have been included in the bid right from the beginning.
I don't disagree.
Gary, I talked to the superintendent today. We talked about the process and everything like that. And I was also talked to Ted Paspila. We talked to bond counsel, I asked to be here tonight in case you have any questions. And it's basically about the process. The process, the way it was handled was the way it's been handled in the past. And it was an oversight because the way the bond's written up and everything like that, Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way the bond is written, that the school committee is supposed to recommend that the contract be signed and like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the contract is supposed to come to the council.
Did we see this contract?
We didn't. It was an oversight.
Mm-hmm.
The work's been done, or most of it's been done. We're on the hook for it. When I talked to the superintendent, I asked if we could have a meeting with the council and the school committee or her, or whoever, and get this process straightened out so this doesn't happen again.
Because, Chuck, in this particular case, we have a bond where we have an extra $140,000. What if this 198 came out of opera money, or it's just an expenditure out of budget, and now we have to find $140,000 to fix this?
I understand. But that's where it sits right now, right, Dave?
The RFP went up in February. The addendums went out. Bids were open. One bid was $505,000 per, which included this BDA system, which you asked me what it is. So and it was 197 from ANJ. And discrepancy was such it caused questions to be asked. ANJ included testing. There was a reference to a BDA in the plans that come with it, but without an instruction to install it. So as a result there, so this is way before the March 9th council meeting. On April 16th, they had I'm sorry, they had a price from ANJ for this change order. It was they signed the contract on May 2nd.
It was in the capital budget only for the original 197, to the council and to the FDM on May 9th, 7 days later. It could have said, comma, asterisk, this could be another 140,000 if the BDA system is needed, testing is expected. So that, and then it was tested in June. So they knew the price before. The good news is they knew the price before they signed it. So it's not like the contractor throwing something. That it was less, 140 and 197 is less than 505. By over $100,000. So it was lower. It is just the process. I think the end result is not. And the process. That's school. I spoke extensively with the school and spoke with school administration. Process. I would note that we did approve in the bond 197,000, so that they had approved the work of high school, the fire alarm. Not having known that it could have been, which we don't know. And we approved some other, they can get them to us. And I understand the reason. There's great urgency to get this done during the summer when it can't be done. So that's the excuse. That's the excuse for rushing. And not rebidding, not giving this from that. The end result is not. And there's plenty of, just to reiterate, there is room in the 3.5 million. And I'm sure that I've seen the numbers that there's right as it goes through 700,000 plus in projects for our city. It is a needed system. It is a safety issue. They did know the number, but it's not as it was surprised they needed. But and that's all. So I'm satisfied with qualified for the bond if you adjust the capital budget to put the 140 in, which could have been done on May 9th. And this and then which you could have approved if they know. I mean, it was certainly I didn't have that's not expected.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Keith?
If I could clarify one point, it was brought up that police communications are not operational in the schools. Scituate PD, probably a year and a half ago, were involved with a multi-jurisdictional training practical exercise at Pontiac Middle School. It was identified at that training that the deeper you go into the school, the brick, concrete, stone breaks down the signal, weakens the signal for the radios. Last year, we upgraded all of our portables, mobiles, and dispatch center. Our portables are now 800 VHS. We've worked with our EMA director, John Robinson, worked with the state EMA. We have a line of communication in the high school and the middle school that is operational. We do have communication inside the school. If this is the communication I'm talking about now is going to increase our bandwidth on the radios and give us more opportunity, that's welcome, or it's going to be a redundant. It's also good. But it's also good to have a backup, because if one fails, you always have to rely on the other one. So I just want to make it clear that through the training that we've done statewide, we have corrected our problem at the police department, that we do have communications through means by new radios through the state EMA and our local EMA. Sit for that.
Thank you, chief.
Knew we'd have information.
Any other discussion? Barring no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Passes unanimous.
It's the vice president point of order. We're going on to town business.
Yep.
Can we move G up front? I think this is what most of the residents are here for, so they can get home to their children.
You wanna move G? G. Question the school committee for the funding. Hey, give me that, okay. Get over it.
If that's the case, I'd like to request items F and G moved up, so F will be heard first and then G will be heard second.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to move items F and G up. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm recused from both of these items because I work for the school department.
Okay, item F is a request from North Scituate PTO for $15,000 of American Rescue Plan Act opera funds to help purchase an electric sign. $15,000 has been raised by fundraising. They are seeking an additional matching $15,000 to purchase the sign.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. We have a discussion on it? Council?
You know, the only discussion I have is where this sign is placed. Is this going to be in the same spot of the existing sign? And the reason I ask that is because I was talking to Rick and Janine Besser, who kind of were involved with this, about the possibility of moving that up to the road. So it could be,
Stay in the existing, because we're gonna add to the bricks that are already there.
is that right?
Yes, promise.
Okay, no, I just thought it might be good to move, if we could move it up to the road, where it'd be more visible.
No, I agree. I think it should be more visible, and
Yeah.
I'd like to really commend, your efforts to you know, raise half of the money.
My one project before my
Yeah.
child leaves in 2 years to get
Wow.
back. That's
No.
my goal for a long time.
No, but thank you for that. And,
Yeah.
that was the, this matching money. I love to see that go for something like that.
How close would you suggest?
You know, I was thinking up, as you go up the driveway, right to the left-hand side, there's grass in there and it's just a matter of running the conduit down. Wiring's not cheap. I didn't ask Rick Besser how much it would cost,
Okay,
but,
he said he would work with us and we're
Yeah,
hoping
I
the
think
bricks
it's-
would cover that.
I mean, you'd have to come back to the town to get approval because it's town land and all that kind of a thing. But I just think it's from a visibility perspective, to get it up on the road would make a lot more sense.
Still have to stay too on the school property.
Well, again, it's just me, that the council would have to weigh in on it and things, but I think it's something to at least consider.
That would be something that would have to come back for the council
Yeah.
to approve because it's not on the agenda.
That's right.
But just the monies to go to it is on the agenda.
think, we have it being a one-sided sign in the price too. So if we did that, I would think it would go kind of like the high school one. You'd have to have. Or just.
Maybe, I mean, just somewhere in there, just, all I'm suggesting is you look into it. That's all I'm suggesting.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Discussion, go ahead, Richard.
Richard Finnegan, what does the comprehensive plan say about electric signs?
I don't know if it says much of anything, Richard, that I can
It
think of.
does. They're not allowed.
Yeah, but on town properties, because usually on town properties, you can get, like at the high school, it was allowed. I think the town properties are different.
I don't think that high schools are in the business of signs. So
No, the electric sign at the high school. I thought that was exempt from that.
Any building or use employed by the town of Scituate in the performance of a governmental function shall be exempt.
Yeah.
But my sign's not a governmental function. That's my point. I would just, you're reviewing the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Man, that's all.
Yeah.
Just make amendments to the comprehensive plan. I mean, it's not hard, and then there wouldn't be a question when the town wants to do something like this.
Yeah.
It's only allowed for government functions. And if you make it clear, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I got to speak to this first because I spoke to it last month and I read what I read. I interpreted it the way I was saying it was to send it back to the school department to see if they could clarify it like that and everything. And if they needed our help, we probably could go forward and look about getting more money in the budget. But in retrospect, I kind of overstepped the council's authority because the council controls the bottom line for the school department. They don't control the day-to-day operations. And I'm speaking with the superintendent yesterday and everything like that. I found that this is an enrollment issue and not a money issue. So based on that, I mean, it's up to what the full council wants to do. But I don't think we should proceed forward as far as money. And if it comes out next year in the budget process, something like that, we could go forward with it, depending on what the school department wants for money. But that's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say in the council.
I just, I would like to say that I think, we do not have the authority to, supersede what the school department, the superintendent, the school committee, they make these decisions. We don't have the authority, nor do we have the qualifications to make those decisions. And I believe that, if this is an enrollment issue, then it should be handled with the school committee and the school department. This is not something we should get involved in my opinion.
I would agree. I mean, this is really a school department, school committee issue. And the lines are pretty clear on this. Not to mention the fact that we'd have to dip into the reserves for $250,000 and change to make this happen. But aside from the cash and the money aspect of it, this is a school issue. My discussions with the superintendent suggest that there's, in her opinion, a very adequate response to dealing with this. Not that she really didn't have to talk to me about it. And so I'd agree. This is a school committee issue, not a town council issue.
I would go one step further. I have taken umbrage with the way Cato Field was handled and other issues with the schools. And I have been told that the school committee is a autonomous body, separately elected from the town council, and that the town council has no jurisdiction over the school committee, and that we simply provide funds by virtue of their request as a budget item. And we did provide them with the budget that they requested this year. So to clarify is basically been told politely, hands off.
Bobby Coletta, 9 Brett Drive. Respectfully, the school committee had told us that they submitted a larger budget to you, which was declined, and henceforth they had to eliminate those 2 positions. So when you come to the community and say that it is not a dollars issue, but an enrollment issue, I beg to differ. I am disheartened and very saddened by the approach that you're all taking. I think that it's very short-sighted. And I think that you are failing to help these underserved Title I kiddos. And I'm really saddened by that. And I'm really saddened by the committee and how they've approached that. It's obvious that the committee has had its challenges. I brought up on the committee meeting last Tuesday for all of the folks who are listening, is there was 20 and 30% salary increases at some of their business units. And I mean, as a citizen who moved to Scituate because of the schools, I'm very saddened by your approach here. And I just think it's just terrible. And I'm sorry that you guys all feel the way that you guys are and you're so hands off here. But if there's one thing to protect, it's our kids. And if there's one thing to protect even further, is the kids who can't advocate for themselves. And if there's a third, it's the kids who can't advocate for themselves and whose parents maybe have obligations that can't be here to speak on those kids. Because again, these are the most underserved. This is our only Title I school. I sent you guys all the testing scores, and you guys, it's clear as day, the need for the additional educators and hope. And it's a shame that the committee and the superintendent haven't addressed it. And I am disgusted by the committee's approach to all of this. And so we really wanted to speak to you guys, so we thought you guys would help us. So I'm just very, very saddened by this approach on both sides.
Sean Bolton, 217 Howard Ave. I also moved here last year. I also moved here specifically last year. One of the biggest reasons was the schools. Came from Cranston. There's a lot of overcrowding. Kids get left behind. But this wasn't an issue last year because last year, my daughter was in a very small classroom, just like the other classroom. It's called past practice. This wasn't only a problem because they didn't get the funding that they wanted to get. So they needed to cut something to get the level funding. Basically, they asked for X amount of dollars. They didn't get it. They said, all right, well, last year, this wasn't an issue. If it was an issue, if it was only enrollment, then why wasn't this taken care of last year? It should have been. They should have said, well, there's not enough kids. We're going to X one classroom out and moving forward, this is what we're going to have to do. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an issue because they had the money. Now they don't have the money, so they're making it an issue. And they said that they would directly, if you gave them that money, that they would directly put these 2 classrooms back. That's what they said. I understand. I know exactly how this works. You can't tell them how to spend the money. They ask for it. You give it to them. They do what they want with it. But they said that they would specifically fund those 2 classrooms. Thank you.
Steve Cornitz, Old Plainfield Pike. It seems to me that the school committee made decisions without letting the public know about it. Their budget was set. Everyone's budget had to be controlled because of how much we can actually increase taxes at any one year. This is an issue where in this town, the school committee gets 60% of the taxes that are raised. 60%. This $250,000 that they're now asking for is a matter of them prioritizing or not prioritizing this classroom high enough. I guarantee you, this is 0.9% of their budget. They can find 0.9% in that budget and make this work. I guarantee you, without having to get another $250,000 out of the 40% that is created. Thanks.
Colleen Pendergast, Scituate School Committee. Mr. Grandy, I'd like to speak to your comment and I'd like to address that as well. This is unprecedented. I've been on the school committee for 10 years. Never before have we come to the town council. We are very much aware of the budget process. We have numerous budget meetings. We make difficult decisions based upon available funds and enrollment numbers. So we made those difficult decisions, and there was an outcry from the public, and we heard you and we listened, and it was only at the I want to be very clear when I say this, and I addressed this with Councilwoman Yar when she was at our meeting on Tuesday night. We, as a school committee, would not come here to ask for more money. We, as a school committee, presented our budget, which we know had to take cuts as we went along, as did every other department in this town. The reason that we sent that letter was because at the last town council meeting, via the vice chair of the committee, he encouraged us to do so. We would be derelict in our duties because believe me, we don't want to cut anything. But we also know, and the town council has been very good partners with us over the last several years, funding our schools to the best of our ability. And quite frankly, and I'm very honest, I believe the figure is closer to 70% of every one of your tax dollars goes to our schools. That's what it's like in a small municipality that does not have a wide tax base. That's what it is. And the council has been generous with us to the best of their ability. We would not be here asking for $250,000 if we were not invited to do so. And I just want to be very clear with that. And it's not to put anyone in the hot seat, but if someone is saying to us, write us a letter, we'll give you more money. Of course, we're going to write a letter and ask for more money. We'd love to be able to fund those positions. And as the letter said, and as the last gentleman spoke to, we all know legally you can't. We are separate and distinct entities. And there's a reason for that beyond Scituate, right? There's a reason for that in most municipalities. We are very much aware that you can't direct us how to spend those monies. But we as a committee met and voted to say, if the town council is telling us they're going to give us this extra money, we will do nothing with that money other than fund those two positions. And I just wanted to be very clear on all of those points.
So I just want to say that, we set a precedent here. We do not want to set a precedent.
Councilman Yor, but do you understand where the school committee is coming from? If we're invited to send a letter and ask for that money, how do we not do that?
We're splitting hairs now. You heard Mr. Collins's statement in the beginning. That was not the opinion that should have been relayed.
Matthew Allen, 159 Hope Furnace Road. I have a question. Why are we cutting from the school that needs the most help? It's again, I said it at the other meeting we went to. My son is one of the kids that has an IEP. He is autistic. There's multiple other IEPs. I know everybody's IEP is not the same, but combining 23 kids into this first 24 kids into what? Yeah, so you've got 25 and 24 kids going into one classroom with multiple levels of education and how they learn and distractions. And I brought it up to the school committee where they sat up there trying to control their meeting when we had irate parents that were yelling things and talking out of turn. This is going to happen in this classroom, and they're little kids. If you had kids, grandkids, they do this. This one triggers this one. With autistic kids, they trigger other kids. Now I'm distracted. Now he's distracting from other kids in that classroom. He was in 11 and 11 last year in kindergarten. Nobody coming into it. He went from Clayville. They had 10 in pre-K. To me, a small classroom is where I knew he belonged. And going through, I kept with Hope, even though his whole IEP team is at North Scituate, and the superintendent agreed that I could have sent him there. But with their high numbers, I knew he was not going to thrive, not because the teachers can't do their jobs or there wasn't enough assistance, but he learns better in a small environment and he'll succeed. So my 6-year-old is going to be pushed back and stop other kids from learning, not always having the assistants always there because assistants are out, PD days, PTO days and whatever. But having a small classroom, it'd be easier if somebody was missing that day to control. In one day, we had an IEP meeting and they said, what's the chances of the special ed teacher out, his teacher out, and his assistant? Believe it or not, it happened. Luckily, Hope is such a small community and they have seen my son and are willing to miss a lunch or hang out in the principal's office because there is nobody watching them because we're not getting the funding. We're not getting the help. People, the school department says they have it in their budget for kids with 504s and IEPs and stuff, but they don't have the body. We have 2 teachers fighting to stay there to teach these kids, which would open 2 other jobs up for their other positions, which would be lower money because they're not top tier teachers. They would be first year teachers that would take these positions, which actually would be more in their budget, but less in their budget. I'm just saying it makes more sense instead of having my kid struggle with other parents' kids struggle, and even without IEPs, being distracted by other kids that have issues, distracting kids that don't have any issues. It's just, it's going to be better if they stay in a smaller environment. And I know it's dollars and cents and your money, their money. And if I had it, I'd give it to the school right now, but I don't. Just to keep the classrooms. That's how important it is.
I understand what you're saying, and I can appreciate it for a number of personal reasons. First, let's say something. The school department budget was not level funded. That was mentioned. The school department budget was increased this year. This is, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm sure you made the same passionate speech, which I appreciate, to the school department. It sits with them. They need to go back and find $251,000 in their budget. They asked for a certain amount of money. We negotiated with them. They accepted the number we negotiated with them like we do every other department, and we gave them what they asked for. Now, did Vice President Collins misspeak or misunderstand? Yes. I guess, is it okay to say you don't follow one mistake after another? Because that's basically what we're going to be doing here, is we don't have the authority or the standing, and I think council will back me up on that we don't have the authority to step in here, and we would be setting up a terrible precedent that every time a department makes a mistake in their budget, they're going to come here and ask us for more money. That could be highway department, that can be the recreation department, could be anybody. And it's, so you need to go back to the school committee and tell them they need to find $251,000 in their budget and put your classes back together.
Or they have to reassign some kids and move some kids around to the open seats in other schools. But again, all of this discussion belongs at the school committee, not at the town council.
Steve Cornett. So my question, it sounds to me like the school committee is looking for $250,000. My question to them would be, is this your lowest priority when you have to find that $250,000? Or is there something else that's lower priority? And if there is, that the citizenry ought to know what your priorities are to come up with that $251,000 to get these kids taken care of.
No. Yeah, I think, Colleen, you ought to just leave that type of thing for a school committee meeting, because I think that's where it belongs.
Michael Marcello, I have a few questions. What was the total ask for the school committee when the budget was presented by them?
It's about $35,000 or so more than it we allowed.
35, that was my question.
It's like 5%.
What was the total request of the school committee when they presented their budget to this council?
Again, I don't have the specific numbers, but we asked all the go back and cut by. No, I don't know. It's not right in front of me. No, I'm just telling you that it was a 5% reduction from their ask, which equated to something like $35,000.
Okay. Okay. Right. I agree that this is unprecedented, but it's unprecedented for a council vice president to send a letter. And I watched the meeting and they pretty much said, you give it, you make the request, we'll give you the money. That's what you said. And that's why the school committee unanimously voted to send a letter to you asking for that money. Now to say, oh, I didn't mean that, then what did you mean? Because the fact of the matter is, yes, once the money is appropriated by you to them, they can spend it any way they want. That is true. But they made a commitment at that same meeting that if you were to give them that money, they would fund those 2 classrooms. So you put your toe into the water, and now when the water gets a little hot, you take the toe out. The reason why these parents are here is because they were asked, the school committee was asked to make the request. I just find it unbelievable. And to suggest that they got everything they want, as Tim just indicated, they did not. They did not. These issues are caused by this council and nobody else.
I just want to state that this entire thing started back in June when the budget was, we found out on a Tuesday and the FTM meeting was a Thursday, but we had no idea that the actual classrooms were being cut. And so it was never outlined in any of the budget documents on what was actually being cut. All it said was 2 FTEs to be added and 2 FTEs to be removed. So there was no opportunity for the public to comment on the FTM, what was going to be cut, because it was not disclosed in any fashion. There was discussions in the superintendent's reports that it was going to be something in the high school. So us, parents of elementary school kids, we had no idea. So it feels like this volleying of my 5-year-old son, which is like I said, I'm disheartened by the whole thing. But furthermore, when the classroom was cut based on enrollment, we had a 6-hour meeting with a committee because we were concerned that they were basing enrollment numbers when it was the very first year that we had online enrollment. We have the enrollment has since increased because it was the very first year we went to full online enrollments. It was not advertised anywhere. It was nowhere on the front page of the Scituate School Department's website. So they made these predetermined cuts without any data or facts. They said that, well, and I know, Councilman, you said that, we're seeing enrollments decline, right? But if you look back 2 years ago in the budget that the school committee posted 2 years ago, it actually shows a lull this last year and this year, and then it starts to increase. So if we're cutting our nose off in spite of our face to save these 2 classrooms this year because we want to give out $50,000 to 2 different positions last year, then we need to really have a real evaluation. And I do agree that the superintendent should be held more accountable and the committee should be looking further and deeper into what is actually being approved within that budget, because I do agree that we should be coming to the school committee, the town council, for this money. It should be with the committee. I totally agree with you all, but we're in this predicament where we have 24 5-year-olds in the same classroom, 7 of them having IEPs. I have a 5-year-old son. I couldn't imagine having 25 of them, 7 of them needing special help. We're like at an impasse here because the committee says, well, the town council won't give us money, and the council says, well, the committee should go back and look at their own budgets. I don't know what to do. I just know that our children are the ones who are impacted.
I have a participant on Zoom that would like to say something. Effie McLean.
Hi, I'm Effie McAvoy, McLean's 624 7 Mile Road. In regards to the Hope School and the situation with the funding, if we haven't, we've been looking at the budget from the school system or the school committee and the superintendent's office and stuff like that, and the increases in positions and the increases in salaries that have happened at the expense of the students and the educators at Hope School. Now, I do believe that it is necessary for people to get paid a wage to survive, but I also know that when you have children in the only Title I school in our district, losing educators, that it's going to have a negative effect throughout all of their learning and their classmates' learning all the way up through high school. Studies have shown that students in kindergarten and first grade and second grade should be in smaller class sizes, because that is the best way to equip them for learning. Now, the parents of the Hope School, we've been gathering and we've been talking and we've been communicating on the best way to help our students in the Hope School, and trying to communicate with the school committee about the reallocation of funds and why they have decided that they were going to either hire new positions at the cost of educators or increase salaries at the cost of educators, and not fully disclose that this thing was happening. We learned, as my sister said earlier, that in June that this was happening, and it shocked all of us because we were unaware, and we were unable to prepare for this. So I say all this to say that we can send it back to the school committee and tell the school committee to find the money, but apparently the underserved students, or the kids with the most issues or the most need in our school system apparently are of less value to those persons in charge, because they are taking away from those persons. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
You need a motion, or you're just going to pass it. Wyatt?
Yes, Madam Clerk. If the council takes no action, it can pass off the agenda.
Do that again, Wyatt?
If the council desires not to take any action, then it would pass off the agenda.
Sorry, I'm not a legal expert. So does that mean that you guys are deciding to not vote on anything or not determine, not have any opinion on this? Okay, thank you all.
Moving on to 10A, recommended revisions to the capital budget as proposed by the town treasurer and no, not the capital. We did F and G. We're doing A, yeah. So recommended revisions to the capital budget as proposed by the town treasurer and finance director. See attached.
Ted raised his hand. I'm going to let him talk. You should be good to go whenever, Ted. And he just left, so never mind. Oh, he's back. He keeps leaving and rejoining, so I just move on.
Di, was your hand raised at one point? I'm sorry. Was that about the schools or was it something else? Public comment? I didn't remember seeing it before. Di?
Make a motion, we accept the, approve the revised capital budget.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Just lost my agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Hold on one second. I lost the agenda in my packet. That's the B, the approval of for the purchasing agent in consultation with the police chief to purchase from the state master pricing agreement, the MPA, 2 new police vehicles from fiscal year 2025 funds approved by the electors at the financial town meeting in the amount not to exceed $125,000.
Second,
Discussion?
Chief,
yes.
the, it looks like the L account is, $20,000 higher for this. Is that, we're spending 70,000 out of the 125 out of the L account?
Yeah, don't have the updated numbers, but, I would have to look. Whoever's in
Right.
the L account.
Yeah. What, for people's general edification, why don't you talk about the L account real
The L
quick?
account, the L account is, for road job, road details, construction details, anytime, details are out on the road, the police car is used. You get a fee for the police car, usage. It's 35 an hour.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Portion of that 35 an hour goes into the L account, which can only be used for purchasing police vehicles. Can't be used for anything else other than the purchase of police vehicles. So a lot of details coming in, that money goes into the account. We're actually higher than what we budgeted or guess the only one estimated. So we can use that money towards the purchase of the new police cars instead of the full capital request.
Great. So more than half of it's covered by this account.
Excuse me.
More than half of the money's needs.
Yes.
Right. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Chief, it's my understanding that we are trying to attain grants as well for police cars. Is that for next year, though?
That's been submitted. We're waiting on a decision on that. I worked with the grant people.
Lisa Andoja, yeah.
Yes, I believe it was a Senator Reed grant.
Yes.
And there was a lot put in that, and police vehicles and the ACO van were incorporated into that grant. We still haven't received word on it. And just sitting and waiting.
So if we get that, we'll leave the money in the L account, use it for future purchases.
We can, yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Would
Thanks.
you though, or would you just defer that to next year's budget and, just, I mean, I'm not sure how we do that. And then maybe, I don't want to put you on the spot with that, but I just, I'm interested in the grant. Or do we need 2 extra police vehicles that we, stay in our same path and just take the extra?
Well, I mean, I would say we could put that money back in the L account, save it for a future budget item, use the grant money that we get. That'd be my suggestion. I have to obviously see what the treasurer and the deputy treasurer and go over that stuff. But that would be my opinion off the cuff. To use the grant money and then keep the L account money for the next budget cycle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Finnegan, chief. Had his own or her own car.
No, cruises are shared cruises, with offices out and with down offices. We do have some offices that are solo. We call it solo in a car for now. So mileage is down in some of the cars, but the cars go from frontline. The better of the cars stay in as reserve cruises, backup cars for when cars go in for service at DPW. We use the backup cruiser, and then after they go there, obviously you see them in the back of the senior center here. We use it for details. That's the $35 coming in for those detail cars. And I gotta say, we get every mile out of those cars, thanks to DPW and guys in the garage that work on these things. We still have I believe it's a 2011 cruiser still out there running. So it's making money. That's all we need to do.
So, and just to clarify that, the new cars go directly to the patrolmen that are on the road all the time.
The new cars go right into appropriated to where they need to be. Right now, we have an admin vehicle that needs to be replaced, and we have a patrol vehicle that needs to be replaced. So those will sub right into those spots.
How far away are we from having each officer have his own car? This has been going on like 30 years now, that this town was going to go towards each officer having their own car. And I've never seen it come to fruition.
We keep adding patrolmen because the growth of the town supports that. So I think it's been difficult trying to catch up, right? And is there?
Is there on a shift has a car or each specific officer? Like if I,
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
I didn't know.
is that necessary?
Do we have
Chief?
17 officers now, or do we have more?
Yep, we have 18 offices, hopefully 19 at the end of this meeting. 18 offices. I'd have to take a look at how many crews. We still have to purchase some more cars to make it effective. For each officer have their own car. They do take pride in the cars. These guys take pride in the cars now, even though they're sharing cars. We try and keep. I won't get into too many details of the police phone, but the guys that maintain their cars very well. We try and spread them out so cars are taken care of. They're down at the car wash and interiors are clean. We keep a check on the interior, so they're maintained by the offices as well as DPW. The interior and exterior are maintained by the offices. Having each officer have their own cruiser. I mean, state police is doing it. Have been doing it. Life expectancy of the cars, I don't think is longer. But I mean, the one guy will be in a car for 5 years. Can't run these cars more than 100,000 miles, 80,000, 100,000. That's things really start to break down at that point. If that's something we want to explore, I can look into that, see how many more cruises we can get.
I think it's a need.
A need now.
Sounds like a budget hearing conversation.
Yes.
Lots of budget hearing conversations need to be had. Wish more people would show up to them. Thank you, Chief. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to C, authorization for the police chief and the town council president in consultation with the town solicitor to enter negotiations with the town of Foster concerning a possible extension of the animal control services agreement expiring June 20th, 2025. The current agreement calls for the commencement of good faith extension negotiations to begin on or about July 1st, 2024.
Move approval.
So I do have a question. Why is such a so robust year before it's due, to start negotiating? Was there?
Probably so we don't end up like we did last year.
Oh. Okay.
Well, I mean, that was my first experience, doing that. And I think
That it's stipulated in the current contract that on or about July 1st, 2020.
I see that, right.
Yeah.
But why was that put in there? That's my question. I mean, why do we start a whole year ahead of time before we're negotiating a contract for the next, it's just a question. It's,
Negotiations that obviously, take a while, and our council and their council only meets once a month, so.
Yeah.
For everyone to be on board with the same.
if they have to approve it, we have to go back and forth and.
It'd be nice to know if we're gonna continue with the current ACO situation or. if-
Right, this is important.
Then we'll be back to a part-time, full-time and a part-time ACO,
oh, wow.
so.
Thank you, Chief.
Richard Finnegan. I just want to make the council aware that Foster has some room in their cap to get an increase in taxes. So let's not be shy asking our sister town, who originally was part of Scituate, pay their fair share. Well, let's not have another situation like the water supply board. I hope some member other than
Thank you.
McCormick negotiates this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to D, possible extension of employment contract for EMA Director John Robinson concerning a term of October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2026, with a salary of $3,750 per month.
Second.
Can't say enough about him. I think he does a fantastic job. Any other discussion?
Where's the money coming from? Oh, was it appropriated in the
Yeah.
budget?
That was already
Yeah.
in the
It's
budget.
budgeted. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sasha Hummel, 104 Rockland Road. Are we still getting a grant for
Yes.
part of that pay?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yep.
Yep.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to E, authorization to continue using TMDA HR Solutions as human resource consultant with a budget not to exceed 45,000 for the fiscal year of 2025.
I had a question on this.
Go ahead.
Was this included in the budget? Was this
Right,
from
that
what
was my-
source, I guess, is what?
So it was
That's-
APRA funding originally, and then we had gone over. So it's been in the bills on a monthly basis that we've been paying out of the APRA. So we went over. Yes, where is it?
Yeah, I did see that. So I guess my question is this based on that presentation we saw earlier, does this provide for them to provide more services to free up Karen from providing those services? Or is this just on the framework?
This is to get us through this
framework.
process, right?
Got it,
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
So are we asking basically for more APRA money for this?
So it's going to, we don't want to exceed 45,000 is what was being said. And in the budget, what we did or what we voted on was that we were going to allot some money for HR purposes in case, just for some of these services that Sakina has presented to us, like in terms of the education and so on and so forth. Those are all going to be yearly fees, which is two separate things, if that makes sense.
So I think we need to know what line item in the budget this is in.
So this Sakina is not in the budget.
So it's not in the budget. at all.
Sakina is coming out of the APRA money.
So the APRA money, the HR consultant, we appropriated. We've
ARPA
spent the
money,
ARPA money,
not
yeah,
APRA.
ARPA money.
Right.
We've appropriated 26,000
Right. Is
And
Ted still
how
on?
much?
and we're looking for another 20,000. Roughly.
Ted? Ted, are you still there?
I am.
Oh, okay. This is coming out of the ARPA money, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Once
it
again, I
doesn't say that
caution
on the
you that we need to, you have the APRA update, but we need to pay close attention as those funds become exhausted. So
Right.
Well, we seem to have adequate funds to cover this. We got 55,000 or so
Right.
available.
But I think the idea behind it was we would like this to eventually come back to us to start making the decisions on how we're going to use the consultant's advice. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it doesn't say on this line item here that this is coming out of the opera funds.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to say that we're going to continue to pay the human resource consultant with a budget not to exceed 45,000 from the ARPA funding. That would be my motion.
Now Karen said if expenditures reach this amount, the consultant is still permitted to do work, then we can pay from the operating budget. So I don't know that I understand that.
well, we have a line item with consultants that if you decide to use more of their services, there is a provision for consultants that was in the budget.
Oh, so this is coming out of the budget now, not the ARPA. The original 25 came out of the ARPA.
And now you're suggesting using more opera to complete
Yes, okay.
complete the work that's undertaken. But if you use the consultant for over and above the original scope of work, we
Yep.
do have money in the consultant's line item.
But so this 45 is another 19 or so $1,000, $20,000, whatever, out of the ARPA funds to complete the tasks that we talked about earlier.
Correct.
Scope of work, that's correct.
Okay.
I made a motion, it wasn't seconded.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
D would like to speak online on Zoom.
Ty?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering, I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute in time before you went on to the next agenda item. I just wanted to mention, two things. First of all, I have, over 3 years of experience teaching special needs kids. I worked at a junior high school and also, in my college, I also helped, the daycare center with their special needs kids. And one of the things that has not been mentioned here, which is important for the school committee to consider, is that special need kids, especially autistic kids or kids that have relationship problems, cannot cope with a lot of people around them. It is sensory overload. They have different issues than normal kids. It's not a matter of them being just mentally challenged, but physically, they cannot take loud noises, being around a lot of people, having a lot of distractions. It will make them withdraw. They won't hear a single thing. They'll lash out. They might hurt others. It's not a healthy system for anyone. So the school definitely needs to reconsider how they're managing their budget and make these kids a priority. It is not acceptable to have teachers let go and other people have raises. This is just really not acceptable. So my
Di, thank
second,
you. Di,
my
thank you
sec-
so much for that. We really appreciate your input on that. But I really think that you should attend the school committee meetings and tell them that. I mean, that's really good input. But again,
I
the
can't
school
drive at
committee.
night. I can't drive at night.
I think
so
that's
they-
important enough to put in an email, Daphne.
And they have it online as well, because I attended the school committee meeting myself on Tuesday, and they do have online participation, just like they do for our meetings. And so you'd be
Oh,
able to raise
okay.
your hand and speak as well.
Well,
And I think
hopefully
that's
they're
great
hearing this
feedback. Thank
now.
you.
You're welcome. And the second thing is with the ARPA funds, are there any committees right now that aren't using all of their money or that could give back some of those funds for things that are really more priority than what they're doing? I mean, I think this is a point where if you only have $50,000, why can't you go back and say, how far along are you on your projects, and do you still need all of this money, or are you just holding on to it in case you need it? Because there are issues that you're going to still come upon that you may need this money for that
Yeah,
hasn't
there
been
is
addressed.
in the packet, Di, it says the completion of how much has been
Yeah.
paid out on each individual project. So,
Yeah.
but we are monitoring them, but I do appreciate that.
And actually,
Well-
I gotta say that I actually asked Karen to go back and do that and do an assessment as to which of these are done.
Yep.
And you know, where there might be excess funds, and she did that, and it's reflected in the report tonight, actually.
Yes, it's
Well,
in the
it's my-
packet.
My understanding that the sign committee got $62,000. Is that correct?
They're in
Do
the
we
process
need-
of completing that.
Is the whole $62,000 needed for signs instead of kids? I mean, this is what I'm
No, this
talking
is-
about.
Well, it's already been allotted for that, and I think actually you'll be pretty happy with the project that they're completing.
Well, I'm not, because what I'm saying is that the priority for
Oh.
children is more of a priority than signs.
And I don't think that the ARPA money can be used directly for the schools in that purpose but I'm not, we can look into that, Di,
Thank you.
right? You can't.
Finnegan, how much was expended?
So far, oh, I just had it. Oh, here it is. We currently at 26. No, I'm sorry. 14.
Just shy of 27,000.
Yeah, 27. Yeah, 26,690. $26,690, 20 cents.
For the signs?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Did we get our money's worth?
I think so. So far, we're doing an excellent job.
It's the Secretary of State's website.
Mhm.
That the Human Resource Committee. One meeting.
As I promised before, when you came up earlier to talk about this committee has been up and down, in and out, losing members, gaining members. It's been publicized to have more members. We felt as though this work was important to continue. We continued with the HR consultant. She made the presentation. I agree with you that moving forward, we need to consistently meet and get the job done.
Will that happen?
Yes.
Because what I'm looking at is disturbing. One meeting in 2024.
Richard, I gotta address this, okay? We had a committee. You have to have a quorum to have a meeting. And more times than not, I'd be there, Abby would be there, Mr. Lombardi would be there, and that would be it. We never had it. We oftentimes didn't have a quorum. So the meeting didn't happen. And then what happened was people would just quit.
So,
and then we'd advertise for people to join.
Yeah, I
Some
think you
people
should
would
be on the
join, then
committee.
they would quit again.
so
I think you should join the committee.
as a member of the public, I'd say, how can I make this committee better?
Don't join. Don't
And-
join.
no,
That could
no,
make it better.
No, and I would say, I would say is, number one, get department heads involved.
Well, they are, Richie. When we needed
I already
their
said
input,
that.
when
I
we
already
needed their
told you they were
input,
going
we
to be
asked them to
involved.
come in. The chief came in, Kirk came in. When we needed
But
their
they're not-
input, they did. Well, we didn't want to talk to you.
They're not part of the committee.
I figured that. They didn't want to talk to me.
Richard, I did attend that meeting and it was a very good meeting and I'm offering up my services as well to be available if anybody would like. I mean, I do have a concentration in human resources management along with my degree, so I'd be
ask the
happy
council to look at the
to help.
finance salaries, look at the salaries, look at human resource members, and just look how low those salaries are throughout the state. It doesn't take much to get a human resource person in.
Yep.
15,000
Mhm.
for Barrington. Or part-time. Why can't we do something like that? Why?
I'd love to.
Why?
100% love to.
So let's somebody make a phone call down to Barrington. Who's your part-time human resource person? We like to talk to him or her. And maybe we can hire that person on a part-time basis.
Great idea.
It's better than paying this kind of money when a committee can't even meet.
I got to tell you something, Richard. The people that you heard from today are from Virginia. We put that contract out to bid and got no one from Rhode Island to bid on it.
I think he's talking about an HR
No, he's
person.
talking about an HR person. In other words, we couldn't even get an HR company to bid on a contract for the town of Scituate in Rhode Island, a Rhode Island company. And so not that I don't hold out a lot of hope that we're going to find somebody for $15,000, but so far we haven't had a lot of success with going forward with this. But one of the things the committee has done is that we looked at it and said, this is woefully behind. And we tried desperately to make it work and kept running into this quorum situation. So it was decided to go outside and hire a company. And fortunately, the ARPA money was available to us to do that without taxing the taxpayers.
So the goal is by the end of the year to have this done.
You're not going to
I'd
trap
love that.
me into a question, but that'd be.
I'd love to
that'd
do
be great,
that
yes.
by the end of my
Richard, your
term.
point-
Yes.
Your point's well taken that there are companies out there that outsource to companies like this. You can buy a person for $15,000-$20,000. Maybe at some point we can consider reallocating some of that I think it's $80,000 in the consultancy, segregate that for this, because this is something we have to have on an ongoing basis.
But I think he doesn't make the point of looking towards employing a part-time employee of some sort to
Right,
do
because
that.
you
Rather than a consultant, someone that's consistent and understands the
This is
town
a
as a whole.
consulting company. They don't come in here and work on the day-to-day operations. You're looking at a
Karen.
human, right? But you're looking at needing a human resources person to take care of the day-to-day operations, and you are absolutely right.
Right.
But right now, getting this consulting company just to get us to that point So we're at a good point where we can hire somebody to take care of the day-to-day operations, I think is where we need to get to be. And I think that's what this consulting company will hopefully get us to that point.
Long story short, I'd like to see it done by the end of the year too. But we have to vote. There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? Have a good night, everyone.
All right.